Siddhartha has lived in the same town in southwest London suburbia for 50 years and always uses the same post office.
I normally go by bus because it's nearby. And I got off the bus, and instead of crossing the road, go to the post office, I started walking back and walked about 10 minutes. And I didn't know where I was. I don't know why I did it, but it's one of those things, I suppose.
Has it ever happened before?
No, this is the first time.
And it was literally, you just didn't know where you were?
No. This is my college in Pune, when I was there 50 to 54.
Siddhartha is nearly 85 and moved from India to the UK in 1955. He says he's had a fulfilled life, working as a computer engineer until he retired.
I don't know really.
He also happens to be my dad, and in November of last year, he was diagnosed as being in the early stages of mixed dementia. So you remember all these things really well?
Oh, yeah.
You can remember it like it was yesterday?
Yeah.
Wow. Dad saw his symptoms as no more than a natural part of the ageing process and refused to accept that dementia may be the cause. He's always been a little bit absent-minded, but Mum persuaded him to go for tests.
He did the memory test. I think he scored sort of halfway, not
They asked me to name 10 animals.
Yeah.
And I could only name 5 animals.
Not even 5, you could only remember
and
2.
then I stopped, I couldn't remember anything. I love my gardening.
Yeah.
You know, and also the fixing things at home.
Dad's been diagnosed with mixed dementia, and it was at this point that I realised that with his cooperation, we can make a film to explore the taboos and stigma in the Asian community around this topic. Like a lot of elderly Asian people in the UK, my dad comes from a smallish community where, frankly, people didn't live long enough to develop dementia, and they certainly didn't call it that then. But the fact is, they reckon that in the next 20 or 30 years, the number of people from ethnic minorities in this country with this illness is going to explode by 7 times. Not only are these first-generation immigrants now hitting their 70s and 80s, but they're also believed to be at a higher risk of getting dementia.
South Asian population, because there's potentially an increase in the numbers of people with conditions like diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes, this is linked with an increased risk of vascular types of dementia.
So, how do I feel about the situation? Well, when I first found out about my dad and dementia, panic set in, and then I started worrying about my mum, who'd become the main carer. And then, in a sense, 2 more selfish feelings came to me as well. One was guilt, because I felt worried that I wouldn't be around enough for them. And secondly, is it going to happen to me?
And the other side. Observe your tummy muscles working here.
My dad's condition has spurred me on to find out more about this problem. So I've come to this community drop-in centre in West London, which twice a week encourages elderly ethnic minority people, mostly South Asian in this area, to come, socialise and use the facilities. Because this is all about prevention.
Many of these people are living on their own now. Their families have flowed. In my experience, I've found that loneliness is one of the main causes for people getting depressed, people getting ill.
Back to the centre.
Once we have people coming in full of tears, you know, really miserable and all, and within weeks you see them transform.
And the people here certainly confirm that.
To the back.
What have we come here for? To do, all these people, they are sitting, what are they going to do?
Something to do with health.
Yes, exercise, isn't it?
Exercise.
It's yoga. I think you're going to do yoga.
Yoga.
Do you like yoga?
I love it.
And over.
Dementia is one of the key public health issues of the 21st century, and yet in this country there is still alarmingly little research on the impact it has on minority communities, who aren't just more likely to get it, but also less likely to report it.
And why didn't you want to go to the doctors? You said your wife had to persuade
Because
you.
I didn't think don't want to waste their time because they got an important job.
Josie from the Alzheimer's Society acts as the bridge between state services and families and carers, and she's worried she's not reaching enough elderly Asians with dementia.
A really shocking statistic is that in Richmond, my service is only reaching 15% of people with dementia, and the key is we need to find out why. I notice that there's a lot more Asian people living in the borough than the proportion of people I see would suggest.
It's true Asians have been less likely to look for outside help, but as I've been discovering, that's also often down to a cultural chasm. Manjeet is a police constable based in Ealing and has bitter experience of this. 8 years ago, her father died with dementia in hospital. She wasn't happy with the way he was treated and says the nightmare has now transferred to her mother, who also has it.
She does get very depressed. She has said to me that she's just waiting to be taken. She starts to go down that road and how much she misses Dad.
She gets into that mindset sometimes. I have to drag her back out of it again and say, you still have a purpose. There are still people that rely on you.
Rajan has moved into his grandmother's house and is now the principal carer.
As her condition progresses, sometimes it's like looking after a child. It is like looking after a child. You have to make sure she's fed or dressed or gets up, and obviously I try to allow her to feel that she's retaining as much of her independence as possible.
Manjeet's mother's nervousness around strangers was exacerbated after being mugged twice. And she also has vivid memories of 20 years ago when a burglar with a knife confronted her in her own home.
She won't accept a stranger coming into the house, especially a male and especially non-Asian, because they don't have the understanding of the culture.
Which rules out male carers for her. What's more, because Rajan doesn't speak Punjabi, they have to go via an aunt on the phone to translate to her what any visitor from the care services is saying.
It needs to go a lot further. Having literature, not just the odd leaflet that's in Punjabi or whatever language it is, but actually having full leaflets, full booklets, having full assessments in their language to know, and maybe having a helpline that they can call.
Now, like Rajan, I don't speak any Indian languages either, but there's one thing I've recently discovered that shocked me. Can I ask you, is there a word in Punjabi for dementia?
She's saying the word is Sudan, which is mad woman. And also it's the same for any other mental illness. There's something wrong with your head. Yeah, but there is no specific word for dementia.
It's a few weeks after we first filmed with Dad, and he'd obviously got some energy back. And something previously unthinkable happened. He even agreed to come to the centre in Whitton. Good on you, Dad. What I'm realising, and it's disturbing, is that out there are thousands of elderly people who aren't getting this kind of interaction, who are not even seeing people for days or weeks, and in that isolation is almost propelling them faster towards dementia. Any stigma around the topic of dementia has largely gone for Dad, and underneath it all there is his and my mother's enduring stoicism.
That's what the life is, and you have to put up with it.
Yeah. Do you ever feel sad about it or worried about it?
No. Once you accept it, you can deal with it.
Oh, and Dad now says sit-down yoga is not really his thing, but he's going to try Tai Chi instead.